I want to go over what I've learned so far in backpacking and hiking with a baby, so stay tuned because that is what we're going to be talking about. Welcome back to the channel. My name is Emory and welcome to Better Backpacking. That's what this channel is all about. So if you're into that kind of thing, consider subscribing. This video is dedicated to everyone and anyone who's either interested in having kids and wants to go backpacking with them, have current kids and want to go backpacking, or just falls into a category curious about kids and backpacking and hiking. When my wife and I got married, when we wanted to have kids, we continued to talk about staying active in the outdoors, and that meant backpacking and hiking, but we wanted to have kids as well. And pairing those two things together can sometimes be a bit of a struggle, but we wanted to do it. We decided we would, so we committed to each other that we would try it. And we did it. We actually went backpacking with our 9-month-old little girl, which is currently 14 months as of this video, and we did it and we were successful. Since that time, we've been hiking out in a bunch of different elements, even before that. So my wife and I put our heads together and came up with a list of things that we've learned so far. Before we even get into lessons learned, I recently did a video on the Deuter Kid Comfort Pro, and I just wanted to do a quick update. We've been using it ever since. It's been awesome. It's not a cheap pack, and you'd think at some point we would have some sort of regret, but we really don't. We have no complaints other than how long the little waist belt lashing is, but we cut it, sewed it. It's not a big deal. It's the only thing we had a problem with. It was just kind of annoying, but that's basically nominal. Now, I will say that we don't have any experience with other kid carriers, so I can't really speak to that. But what I can say is that the experience that we've had with the Deuter brand thus far, the Kid Comfort Pro and the features that it offers has been great. Literally no regrets. It's comfortable for myself, it's comfortable for my wife and our baby, and it's awesome. I highly suggest checking it out. If you want, I did a review. I'll put a link in the description of this episode. You can check that out if you want. So now that that's out of the way, let's go into the lessons learned. So when can kids ride in a kid carrier? When you're looking at kid carriers, make sure you check out what the manufacturer suggests, and they will tell you when it is appropriate for a baby to ride in a baby carrier. I will say that it depends on the development of the kid. Can they hold their neck up? Can they kind of move their torso around? You don't want a baby in a chair flopping around while you're walking through the woods. That's no good for anyone. So prior to that, we used a chest carrier. So my wife or myself would wear our little girl in a chest carrier while we hiked, and it worked great. I've seen people backpacking kid carriers like that little chest carrier. It doesn't sound very comfortable to me, but if that's all you have and that's how your kid is able to ride with you and go with you, then awesome. As they get older, I highly suggest getting a kid carrier that acts more like a backpack, but it takes a while for them to get there developmentally. So check with the brand and what they suggest in terms of development before you toss a baby in said carrier. So lesson number 1, not all babies can ride in the kid carrier. They have to be a certain developmental stage. Next up is layers. Layer up your baby. You have to remember that even though you are heating up and getting warm, they're sitting back there not doing a whole lot other than like looking around and maybe eating. That's not gonna warm them up very much. So you have to think ahead. You have to think, how cold is it outside? And then kind of bring a bunch of different options. So what we do is we layer our baby. That looks something like putting a long sleeve onesie on, or like a long sleeve pants, long sleeve shirt, and then putting her in a fleece onesie. We had a bunch of different styles, and as she gets bigger, we just keep getting bigger and bigger fleece onesies. And yes, we've even bundled her up in many onesies, and the reason being is that she's gonna get cold. She's gonna get cold eventually. The extremities are gonna get colder than normal. She's not moving around. So with the layering system, just like on yourself when you are backpacking and hiking, you can take a layer off or add a layer depending on how warm or how cold the baby is. You check, you kind of put your hand behind their back or on the back of their neck, you kind of see where they're at, and then you adjust accordingly. So layer up your baby. That's the best way to do it. Fleece is really good at staying warm, and it kind of blocks the wind a little bit. We bundle her up with fleece layers wool socks, and sometimes she doesn't really like gloves or anything on her feet, but if it's really cold outside, we'll pull a sleeve over her hand so that it blocks the wind. And we put a hat on, and another hat on, and another hat on. And yes, sometimes she looks like the Christmas Story situation, but at least she's warm and she's happy. So layer up your baby. Next is wearing your kid carrier. Most kid carriers are backpacks. They're built on the backpack idea. That means you have to wear them like a backpack. If you're not aware of how to do that, pretty simple. The waist belt goes at your hips and you cinch that puppy down. You make sure the suspension is the proper height so that it's not crazy tall or crazy short and it's not pulling you. And you make sure that the chest strap is connected. And then you pull those load lifters, little straps above your shoulders, pull those things to like a 45-degree angle. You can feel the load kind of pull up and you're wearing your kid carrier the right way. If you're not familiar with how to do that, there's a ton of videos online about how to wear a backpack, but it's even more important when you're carrying a baby. Why? Because if this is you, normally you want a really heavy load, like let's say my hand is the load and this is you in your backpack. You want it kind of like up and like really close to your shoulders, like right on your shoulder blades, right? Because things are heavy and you want it close to your center of gravity. Well, with a kid carrier, they're kind of going to be higher and like further out. So wearing your kid carrier is even more important. They just ride a little bit higher and a little bit further out. So you want to make sure that that thing is nice and secure and running the right way. I recently saw someone wearing a kid carrier that made me cringe. The baby was like cockeyed and the waist belt was way down and it looked horrible. You can be comfortable. Make sure that kid carrier is fitted the right way and you're wearing it the right way because it is a backpack. The more correct you can wear this thing, the more comfortable you're going to be and the more comfortable the baby's going to be. If you know about kids, you know they're going to need snacks, so bring snacks. We've rarely had a meltdown in the kid carrier, but when we do, we make sure to have snacks. And you take the snack out and you feed the monkey. They're gonna get hungry at some point. And yes, you might have to take them out and feed them. But if you can feed them crackers above your head, it's fun for them. They're looking around and they're munching on it. And it's a great way to avoid meltdowns. So bring snacks, bring a couple different types. Make sure you have what they like on hand and go from there. We stick with crackers because they're easy. And if they drop them, it's not a big deal. But yeah. Bring snacks. Backpacking with a kid carrier is totally possible. The one that we purchased, the Kid Comfort Pro from Deuter, has backpacking type features in it. That's why we bought it. It has like an integrated sun hood. It's got a big spot for extra gear. And we actually went backpacking with our baby at 9 months old, 3 miles in, 3 miles out with a couple of dogs. And here's how we did it. I carried all of the camping gear. My wife carried the baby and the baby gear, and it was perfect. We didn't go a long ways. We could have gone a lot further after having done it. We were like, we could totally do this a lot further. And you just plan accordingly. What I would suggest is choosing a place that is easily accessible for your first time out and isn't super strenuous. You want to make sure that you're having a good time. It's not stressful for anyone and you're going somewhere that maybe you've been before. That's what we did. That's how it worked for us. And you can check out that video. I'll put the link in the description if you want to see how that went. But totally doable. You can go backpacking with your baby, I promise. Dealing with the elements. This is an incremental thing. You have to take it in increments. When we first had our baby, we had her outside as much as possible, going to the dog park, walking around the block, going on small hikes, and eventually that built up to the point where we could go backpacking with her. We didn't just take her out of the house, toss her in a kid carrier, and go backpacking. We did this incrementally, and that's really, really key. You need to get your baby used to the elements, whether that's sun, snow, rain, whatever it is. Go for a walk around the block in the rain. Use an umbrella. Bundle him or her up and go for a walk at the dog park. That's what we do all the time, whether it's 15 minutes, 50 minutes, an hour, couple hours. Get them used to being in the elements. It's gonna go a long ways, and it won't be this big shock when you're backpacking or hiking and it's cold out. We're now to the point where our little girl doesn't mind if her hands are cold or if her nose is cold. She's totally happy being outside. Yes. Does she have some discomfort at times and she kind of gets wiggling? Yeah, of course. And then we just turn around and go home. But for the most part, 99% of the time, she's totally stoked, totally happy, loves looking around. In fact, we get compliments all the time by people. We'll be at the dog park or on a little trail and it's not exactly the most perfect conditions. And they're like, wow, good job. You have your baby out. Well, of course, like we can do it because You just do it. They don't know any different, but you have to incrementally get them used to the idea of being outside. My wife even did this with bringing our little girl outside to take naps, and now she's totally fine sleeping outside. And if you feel like you've missed the boat, maybe you didn't do it when your kid was younger, you can still do it. Again, just get them used to being outside, and I promise it'll work out. When it comes to buying a kid carrier, make sure you can do this with one person. You can handle it with one person. At some point, you're going to be putting the baby on your back or taking your baby off your back by yourself. The thing we really like about our kid carrier, and I'm sure this is kind of similar to a lot of others, is that you can do it with one person. Ours has a kickstand, so you put the kickstand out, put the baby in, you buckle her in, and you can sling the baby on your back all by yourself. My wife can do it, I can do it, on, off. It's such a great feature to have. So make sure that if you get a kid carrier, you can manage putting it on and taking it off with the baby in by yourself. Both comfort for you and the baby is huge. If one or the other is not comfortable, you got problems. Find a kid carrier that you find comfortable and your kid finds comfortable. Every once in a while, yes, you're gonna be uncomfortable, but you need to adjust. And if your baby's uncomfortable, find a way to adjust that. If it's just not working, you might want to look into getting a different kid carrier. I would imagine that not all kid carriers are beloved by all kids. So we were lucky. I think the Deuter brand is comfortable for our little girl, comfortable for us, and that allows us to go further and further and further. The longest we've hiked with our baby in the kid carrier is a couple of hours. And I know that might sound crazy, but it's not. She's comfortable, she takes naps, we make sure that she's happy, she's used to being in it, and we've hiked up to 4 miles at a time, really, really slow with her in it. So it's totally doable, but you have to make sure they're comfortable. Being outside with your family is incredible. It can also be really stressful. Take it in stages, do it incrementally, and before you know it, you're gonna be backpacking. But don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to bring your kid outside. Start by walking around the block. Start by going to the dog park. Go on little hikes. Go up the trail for 15 minutes and come back. Be patient. I promise you it's gonna pay off. And it's gonna be great because you're gonna look back and have those pictures. And the next time you're gonna push the envelope a little bit more, maybe it's 1 mile, maybe it's 2 miles, maybe it's overnight, maybe it's 2 nights. It's gonna be great. And pretty soon you're gonna have your outdoor family that you always wished for. Now, of course, if they don't really like it, they don't like it, and that's totally okay. Just put in the time and be patient. It's gonna work out. Okay, I think that's it. If you have any questions, please leave a comment below. I'd love to hear what your experiences are. If you have any tips and tricks outside of what I've just mentioned. If you're headed out for an adventure, be safe, make great decisions, and we'll see you next time.